Okay. Good morning. It is September 14th, 2022, and I am here to interview my mother, Frances Joanne Jensen LeVeque. So, let's begin with your background, Mother. Tell us what you remember and we'll fill in some gaps.
All right. I was born in Gma, Illinois. When I was born, there was a blizzard, and we were stuck in the hospital, I guess, for a week or so. And when the doctor went to the county clerk to register my birth, it was a week after I was born, and when it was recorded, it was December 26th, 1929, and that date has been I don't know what you want to call it.
Pain in the butt.
A pain in the butt is right for probably 90 years.
Did you say that doctor just said that all you newborns were born on that date? Wasn't there several of you?
All the babies that were born that week were all registered as December 26th.
So you're not alone in that.
Yeah, so I hope the others had an easier time to get it straightened out.
And you were the only child, right?
I was an only child. We lived on a farm. It was as I remember, it was very nice. The man that owned it was named Hoag, and we rented from him. And the house and farm buildings were well kept up, and we had to do the same when we lived there. My mother raised chickens and ducks and guineas, and my father had cattle and farmed grain, corn, beans, oats. And my grandfather was probably about 3 miles from where we lived, and my uncle was probably about 3.5 miles away.
Was this all in Gilman?
And this was in a town called Hoag.
Oh yeah,
We lived close to Hoag, which was a grain elevator and a railroad depot and a store and a Methodist church and probably about 3-4 houses. And
who, like your mom and your dad, what like nationalities are they, and what grandfather was it that lived by you?
Okay, my paternal grandparents were Nels Jensen, and I don't know a middle name. He was born in Denmark, and I can't remember the town.
Mm-hmm.
I have a picture of the farm that he lived on in my kitchen dining room now. And my grandmother, her name was Augusta Nelson. My grandfather,
keep going,
had a sister back in Denmark, and when my grandfather, great-grandfather, was dying, why he left the farm to my grandfather's sister and her husband, and normally it would have gone to him. So I have always thought he got ticked off and
I remember that. You were saying that.
Came to America, and he had relatives here already. My grandmother, she was born here, but she was Danish also, and my maternal grandparents are, they lived in Piper City, and my grandfather was he and his brothers were guys that did concrete work, sidewalks and furniture and swimming, not swimming pools, but pools that you would have in your front yard with goldfish and stuff.
Yeah.
And he finally broke away from that and became he owned a tavern downtown.
This is your father.
This is my mother's father.
Your mother's father.
His name was John Herr.
Oh, okay.
He had 4 brothers and a sister. My grandmother, she was born in Germany, and she and her family came to the United States, and her name was Frida Tiedemann. And I have always wondered, because some of the jewelry that she left, she had a swastika pin, and she had a rosary, and something else I can't remember offhand, that made me think that they were, the government was, under the kind of government that Hitler had started out, and with the name of Tiedemann, that she may have been, it may have been a Jewish name.
Yeah, very true.
And for me, it was, back in those days, children were to be seen and not heard. So you didn't ask, and you didn't, if they shared things with you, that's how I got to know. Funny story with my grandmother that came from Germany. They went to Nebraska to be with their family there, so they could get acquainted and settled somewhere. And the family there had a girl her age. She said she was about 8 or 9 when they came, and of course she was in a black dress, and her hair was cut, very sharp and short and ugly and that. And this cousin was a pretty blonde girl, which had a flowery dress and probably made out of feed sacks, but it was, it wasn't black, and had blonde curly hair. And they were playing, and they were under the table where everybody was sitting. They were under the table playing or visiting, and that. and she decided to get a scissors and cut a curl off of this cousin's hair and pin it on hers, and then,
Oh,
so
man.
needless to say, she got into trouble.
Yeah.
But they were in Nebraska for quite some time, and really didn't. You know, the storms were so terrible, blizzards and that. They decided to move to Illinois, and I don't know what my great grandfather did, but she had 2 sisters and a brother, and they were Minnie, Miney, and John. And Minnie was crippled, and grandmother says that she was. They would have to take her with them when they had to go out and work in the fields and that, and babysit her and that. And they said that she was, I forget how she said it, like sunstruck, meaning, you know, she got sick from the sun, but I think it was probably polio, you know.
That's what I was wondering.
So she was always in a wheelchair whenever I saw her, and she married, and I had 3 girls and a boy, and did her own housework and
there you go.
made beds and, you know, took care of these babies.
Yeah.
It always made me think it was so wonderful.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, especially for back then.
Yeah. And Miney was, I didn't know her well, but she had cancer at the end of her, when I was, you know, able to remember, and that, and Grandma and they lived in Piper City too, and when we went to visit Miney, we'd always take a little container of ice cream, so she, you know, had a treat. And my great-grandmother, she lived in Piper City too, and I can remember seeing her, but that's all I remember. She had a black dress on, and she had snow white hair, and I always thought how wonderful it would be to have pretty snow white hair.
Don't you think? And here you are.
And here I am.
Yeah.
I got my wish.
If you're going to be gray, you want to be white. Yeah. It's beautiful.
So, anyway, that's kind of the background that I can remember of them.
So then you grew up on the farm?
Yes.
In Hoag.
Yeah, near Hoag. And
what were your jobs? Or what did you do?
Well, probably getting into trouble or something, I suppose, because we only lived there till, you know, I was like 4 going on 5.
Oh, okay.
And then we moved. But, I always helped Mother with you gather the eggs, and I used to get the little, I loved when the duck eggs hatched, and the little ducks were in their cute little yellow things with orange beaks, and there's fur is just, I mean, it's like fur. It's not like a feather, you know. As they get older, they look a little ugly, but until they get their feathers,
So then where did you go after the farm living?
After we left Gilman, we came to Irwin, and Irwin is between Hersher and Shabantz. And this farm was up a long single car lane, probably about a block long, and it was not taken care of. There was no paint left on the house nor on the buildings. The one tool shed was metal, so it didn't need metal, any
maintenance.
paint.
Yeah.
And we brought with us pigs and chickens in the chicken coops, and I don't remember ducks in Irwin. And we had a team of horses, beautiful big white and gray work horses, Sparky and Queen. And I can remember, their legs were huge, and I was supposed to go in and pick up their leg and clean out the bottoms so they wouldn't have stones and stuff stuck in the shoes and hats. And I think this day, I must have been pretty brave because,
those horses are huge.
Yeah, one kick and they would have had me flying.
Now, your dad had how many brothers? 2 other ones?
No, he had, he was the oldest, and then Harold, and then Alfred, who they called Duke, and they had Arthur, and they had one boy, his name was Darrell, and he drowned in a horse tank. So anyway, there were Brian's 5 sons.
So, and what was your dad's name? Just to be clear.
Dad's name was Frank Holger, Holger Jensen. And
Video there. Okay, we'll try this again. Part 2. You were talking about, you wanted to go back to your dad's side.
yeah, my dad was the oldest of 5 boys. The youngest was Art, and he was a farmer all his life. The next one was, next oldest is Duke. Alfred was his given name. And he went to Illinois Wesleyan and graduated, and he became a big deal, like a CEO in Maytag company in Indiana. The next one was Harold, and he was a farmer his whole life. The next one was Darrell, and he drowned at, I think he was about 2 or 3 in the horse tank. And then there was Dad. Dad was a farmer. At first he worked in on the railroad, and then he was a farmer, and I guess you could say a politician, and a tavern owner, and that was what he was when he died. I was the only child in that family for a long time, so I was
with all of these
with all those
brothers.
guys.
Wow.
And I was naturally spoiled, I guess. Alfred, he finally adopted a girl, he and his wife, and then Harold adopted a boy, and then later adopted a girl, and the girl is Louise is her name. She lives down in southern Illinois. I on the telephone, see some of her messages and that, and comment on them. The boy was, his name was Bill, and he moved to Indiana when he was older and became a mechanic for TWA, quite successful, and died an alcoholic. Then as Alfred and his wife Mildred adopted a girl, and she was in our wedding, and I lost her name, but she married a guy that was, well, I don't know, it was not good.
Oh, yeah.
And then Art, when he married, he finally had children of his own. He had a girl, Mary, who lives in the suburbs of Chicago, and she was graduated from Southern and was back in the day when you wanted to go on a trip or something, you went to the travel agent.
Oh.
And she did it for big companies and that kind of thing. She dated for a while, and she always had a female that lived with her, so she never married. And then there was the other child was a boy, Steve, and he was a student at the University of Illinois, and in a fraternity, and they were, oh boy, what's that word, when they're initiating their new members. And what they did, they threw mattresses outside on the ground and stacked them up in that, and then they were having everybody jump out the window and land on the mattresses. Well, Steve didn't land on the mattress, and he had landed on the ground and about killed himself.
Right.
They didn't know if he was going to live, but he finally did, and he had to be in a wheelchair for most of his life in that. He married, got divorced, had a daughter, and he died not too many years ago, and he was even as a cripple like that. He worked for an insurance company. What is it?
State Farm?
State Farm, I think that was it, and did a lot of traveling and that. Go places and that. And, he drove his car. He had a special car. It was...
Did he die of natural causes?
Well, I don't think so.
Yeah, somehow I kind of remembered that in the story.
It was kind of, Mary was the only one, and the daughter. And the daughter and the mother, you know, she hated him and tried to turn her
Daughter away, yeah.
daughter away from. So I don't know.
Okay.
I just never ever inquired.
Yeah.
Again, you know, you don't know unless you ask questions.
Yeah. So then your mom,
And then mother, she had a brother and a sister. Her sister was the oldest, and she worked at a store in Piper City. The owner was Ursel Quick.
And her name was what?
Edna May. And she worked for, it's a store like what you would think of as Walmart or something, you know, where they have everything and that. And she worked there for years, and she and the Ursel fell in love, I guess you call it. And he was married and had a child, a girl, but he divorced, and they ran off to Missouri and got married, and then went to Tennessee, and they both went to what do you call it? Beauty school. He was a barber, and she kind of did hair too. I don't think she got into it that much, though. They came back to Illinois and bought a farm and raised the little miniature ponies and that. And they had a son, but he died at birth.
Okay.
And they moved into Piper City with their ponies, and that's about what, you know, they stayed there till they died. And mother was the second oldest, and mother worked as, in her lifetime, she started out as a telephone operator. You know how you have
party
lines and that kind of thing. And then she was a housewife, and later on in years, by then we were living in the Irwin area, and she started working at the munitions plant. This is like when the Second World War was on, and worked there. Then after she left that job, she got a job as a waitress at Maple Manor, which is a restaurant that used to be on Route 49 before Route 57 was built, and it was a big traffic
like a stop,
a place where the people from the north went to the Illinois football games, and coming back would always be the time to stop for food, and it was a good restaurant and that, so she was always busy on those days.
So you guys were living here then, or would?
Yeah, we were living. We were living in Kankakee at that time, and then she went from there. She went to Marty's.
Oh, steakhouse.
Marty's Steakhouse, and they closed. Then she worked at McClellan's for a short time, and then she went to
Kresge's, yeah.
Kresge's, and worked there for quite some time, and then they closed that store and built Kmart, and she didn't want to go there. and she got a job at the wedding center. She was always a
Did the
great
alteration.
seamstress,
Yeah.
and loved to do,
I remember.
you know, like beading and sequins and all that
Oh,
stuff.
wow.
So she was, you know, could sit and do that for hours, you know.
I remember Kresge's, we would go there after church, wasn't it? And we'd always get their sliced ham in the deli and go home and have ham sandwiches.
Yeah.
And I think I would stay overnight at her house.
Yeah.
And did we walk to her work, or
Yeah,
did she
yeah,
walk to work, or
yeah.
maybe I walked with her to work or something? I kind of remember that.
Yeah, we were living on Station Street, East Station Street, and she walked to work all the time. Yeah. We had a car, but she decided she didn't want to drive anymore, so I had to do all the driving. And then my uncle, his name, her brother, George Emery Herr was his name, and he was called Spud. That's the only name that anybody ever really knew who he was. He lived in Indiana, and he was a coal miner.
Oh, wow.
And, as his wife, Bernice was her name, and her nickname was Myrno. It doesn't make sense, but Myrno.
Yeah.
Everybody knew Myrno and Spud.
Yeah, I remember those two.
They lived in she would say, in the pocket of Indiana, where the boundary lines go down deep into.
Oh, okay.
And they stayed there for a long time. I think they had 3 kids, a boy and 2 girls, and Ron was the boy.
Sylvia, what is that one?
Sandra was the girl, and isn't that awful?
There's no Sylvia?
No.
No? Okay. That's the only name I could think of.
Donna.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It was Donna's the oldest, then
Ron?
and he was called I'm getting tired. Not Chubby. Anyway, I'll think of it. It's a nickname that it was funny because everybody called him by this nickname that had to do with weight, and anyway, when he was a coach in high school, he was a teacher and I was a coach. And he said, "Now, if you come to the game, please do not call me, isn't that awful? I lost his names. But anyway, he's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And
but he wasn't really chubby or whatever, was he?
No, tall and skinny and, good-looking kid.
Yeah.
Anyway, they came back to Piper City, and when the kids grew up, they moved to Arkansas. Yeah, they had some big deal years ago, buy a lot in Arkansas. So they bought one, and one time, Dad, Neno, and I were on vacation, and we stopped to see him. It was a nice place, but it wasn't Piper City.
Yeah.
So they moved back to Piper City, and then finally to Rushville, where Ron and his wife lived.
So what about your upbringing then? After the farm, and then what schools and
Yeah,
what was that like?
when we moved to Irwin, we had we lived about a half a mile from the line that was Shabantz and Hersher, and I could have gone to school either one of them. And I thought, well, now this is ridiculous. I don't want to go to Hersher. That's 10 miles away. Shabantz is 10 miles away. And I knew that no one in the area went to Hersher to school. So anyway, I chose Shabantz, but my grade school years were
Awesome.
Okay, today is our third taping. It is the 15th of September, 2022, and we left off yesterday with, where did we leave off?
after high school. I think.
Yeah, we went through the school, but I guess I wanted to,
But I want to add to that high school
okay, yeah.
part as to how it affected my life. My parents did not have a happy marriage, and throughout my high school years, my father would leave the farm for maybe 2 or 3 days and then come back and be there a couple of days and leave again. And I think there were 3 times that Mother and I left and went to my grandmother's in Piper City. But she'd always go back and that. And it got to the point where Mother and I couldn't handle the farm, and so all the animals were sold, and there were a couple years that Dad still farmed crops and that, but for the most part, most of the time he was pretty much gone. Although I was active in stuff at school, and if I didn't have a ride to wherever it was, he would make sure he was home so he could take me or whatever. But it was like, I could get away because I was going to school every day, but my mother was home alone in that house. And if you can imagine you being home and you run out of milk and you run out of this and you run out of that, and it was, I can say, it was stressful. If you want to be stressed, you never knew what was going to happen.
So you just had one vehicle and he drove?
One vehicle, and he took it, and we were
Okay.
there.
Okay.
But as I said, I could, get on the bus in the morning and, go
Right.
to school, come home, and know that I was going to be able to leave again the next morning. So that kind of set the idea of our moving to Kankakee, and like no other daughter-in-law, Mother and I moved in with my dad's mother, and she was elderly, and it was a good thing, but it was, heartbreaking to that this all happened.
And what was her name again?
And that was
Is that Augusta?
Augusta. She lived on Station Street.
Okay, yeah.
So we had one bedroom that Mother and I shared. And she finally went to work, and Dad did buy us a car. We had a Chrysler New Yorker, a beautiful dark green. It was pretty classy, for the time.
Did you get to drive it?
And Mother decided, well, I think, she was not taking anything from him, so she quit driving. So I had to take her to work, and I had to pick her up. And, not that I resented it, because it got to the point where I was, I was the mother and she was a child, and that kind of thing. So
and so this was after high school?
This is after high school.
And what were you working at?
And that's one thing. When I got out of high school, I was going to, I was registered to be a nurse, go into nurses training at St. Xavier's in Chicago. And my friend we both were registered. Well, she backed out, and she wanted to stay here in Kankakee and go to St. Mary's nursing school. And I didn't want to be in Kankakee. So that meant, what do I do? So I had, my uncles had gone to Illinois Wesleyan, and we were, Methodist, so I quickly applied there, and my dad took me down there, and I stayed for about a week, and all I could think of was my mother is home alone,
right?
And maybe if I went back, I could make things better. Well, I called him up and I told him, I said, come and get me. I don't want to be here. So that was when, we actually, it came to a head that we had to leave the farm and go with Grandma. And I still wanted to go to school, so I went to Gallagher's Business School in Kankakee. It was across the street from the courthouse, and I had a lot of business classes in high school, so I studied accounting and handwriting, and we had these little adding machine kind of things where you could, put your hand on the right and do the typing of the numbers and looking at it with your left hand on the paper. Shorthand, I can still write my name in shorthand. I remember how to do that. And then I got a job at A.O. Smith as a secretary.
Okay, continuing on.
We're on again?
Uh-huh.
Okay, I became a secretary at A.O. Smith's in engineering, and worked in an office with 9 men who were draftsmen and guys that went from the drafting down to the factory and looked at machines and compared them to the drawings and everything. And it was interesting. And 2 of my best friends were working there, so we we had a good time.
Is that the place you told me that you would smoke cigarettes at your desk?
Yes, yes. You could.
Can't imagine
You
that.
could smoke at your desk, and I used to smoke Philip Morris. They were oval shaped, and
Really?
Anyway, you know, you light a cigarette and put it down the ashtray. I had 2 phones with about 3 or 4 or more numbers on there, you know, because the different departments in the factory would, you know, want it lined to the engineering and the bosses and that. So it was, you know, it got crazy sometimes when there was a problem. And the crazy things that you remember. I had a desk that had a glass top on it, and I had a big wart on my knuckle, and it bugged me, you know, and I couldn't get it off, and I was at my desk, and the phones were ringing, and I was turned the other way, and I turned around and missed putting my hand on the desk, but came down on the edge of that glass top, and I tore that wart off of my knuckle there. That, you know, the draftsmen in the office, they were, you know, they saw blood, and because they, you know, a wart will,
Yeah.
if you get down in the deep and they bleed like they were about ready to call me or take me to the hospital. But no crazy things that I remember.
Yeah.
You mentioned what I did in, you know, for entertainment, I guess, in high school. As I said, there were about I had about 5 girlfriends from Irwin, and one of them had a brother, and so we all kind of ran around together, did things together. When I was really, you know, grade school age, I go into Irwin, and my dad played cards in the tavern there, and I'd meet my friends, and we'd, you know, walk up and down the street, you know, and just looking for something to do. And there was a pool hall in Irwin, and this one man used to come and play pool, and he'd have his car out in front of the building. So we asked him if we could sit in his car, you know, and just pretend, you know.
Really?
So then we get in his glove compartment. He has cigars. So I don't know, I probably was involved too, because I was there, swiped cigars out of there. And then we get out of the car and we go down on the railroad track and sit there on the track and smoke cigars.
Oh my gosh.
And complain about how terrible they were. How could people do this? So, and dancing was very popular in those days, and they used to have that pool hall that I'm talking about had a dance hall up above, and there was a group of people, I think there were 4 of them, that knew how to play the trumpet and the piano and the drums and some other instrument, and they would be the band, and then they would have dances up there. And
but you guys as kids could go, or
yeah,
this was like
yeah, we could go. And they one of the things that was popular back then was that if someone was getting married, they had a shower for the couple, and everyone, somebody'd be in charge, and everyone in the area was sent a postcard telling them when it was going to be, and the time, and what they should bring for food.
Oh yeah.
Everybody chipped in and brought things, and and a gift, for the bride and groom, and then they'd have this dance, and then they'd have the food, and I could remember how fun it was to dance and that, and have the food, and afterwards in the paper plates, which were like going through the air like frisbees are now.
Well, it's pretty neat.
But there wasn't too much, to do as a kid. As I got a little older, I had one of the girls that I ran with was Louise O'Connor, and she had a sister that lived in Chicago around 63rd Street on the south side, I guess it is now. And she used to want us to come up and visit. She was a nurse at some hospital there. And so we started going up there. We'd take the train from Kankakee to 63rd area, and then walk to her apartment and drop off our overnight bags, and then we go shopping. It was like Orland and those Woodfield now. It was a nice shopping area. And then in the evening, we did this on a Saturday morning, and in the evening we'd go back to her apartment and change clothes, and then we went to the Trianon, which was a big dance hall up there. The Aragon and the Trianon. Aragon was on the north side and Trianon on the south.
Yeah.
And it wasn't so much that, we danced with one another, and there were guys that would, ask us to dance, but we were young and they were old, I guess.
So what age were you?
So what?
What age were you when you were doing that?
Well, let's see, we must have been like sophomores, freshmen, sophomores.
Okay.
And anyway, but we went because of the bands, the Guy Lombardo and Sammy Kay, and
wow,
I can't remember all the
big names though.
Yeah, they were like top of the line, and so you could just sit and enjoy yourself listening to the bands and singing and that. So, and then we go home on Sunday back to Kankakee, and we used to go to they had wedding dances, and they too were you paid money to get in, and of course as we were young, so they didn't, if it was an older couple, they'd want $10, $20, maybe more from older people, but we were kids, and they, you know, if we gave them a couple bucks, we were in, and we usually went to Clifton. They had the best hall, or the KC, and they had, you go in, pay your money, and you could dance all evening, and the money all went to the bride and groom. So it was a fun
And you
time
wouldn't
to do that.
necessarily know who they were, or would you? Okay.
I can't get them out of my ears. Oh, they quit. An 800 number.
Oh. So, but did you know these people, or was it just the place that
usually, if we went to a wedding dance, we would know them.
Small enough,
and
yeah.
Because when we went, we would get together, and we'd get a ride into Kankakee, and then we would take the Greyhound bus from Kankakee to Clifton, and then we had to find a way home.
Oh, that's scary.
Yeah, so it was, you know, I mean, you wouldn't do that with your kids nowadays.
No, I wouldn't think so.
And anyway, that's...
But you always found a ride.
I lost my train of thought because there was something else. Oh, there were other dance halls that we went to. There was one in on 17 West, and it was called Dreamland. And they had wedding dances too. We used to go there all the time. Then there was one out East 17, and it was called Avon. You know, we went there a couple times, but it was a rougher crowd, and there was too much drinking and drunks and whatever, so we didn't go there very often. As far as other entertainment, there wasn't a whole lot of things. There in Kankakee at that time, you know, like when I was a freshman and sophomore, the war was still, you know, going on hot and heavy, and the town would be full of soldiers from Chinook Field and sailors from Great Lakes, and I mean, you could walk up and down the streets and see, you know, a group of 4 or 5 together, you know, of each of those servicemen. So they, you know, they would go to dances and things in Kankakee.
You guys had TV at home, though?
No, no.
Not even when
there was no TV, no radio only.
When did you ever get TV?
I was married and had Kathy.
So not even when you were...
And pregnant with Beth. And our friends, Priscilla and Herb Hess, lived above Home Appliance.
Oh, okay.
And Station Street. And I guess Home Appliance got hooked up so they could sell televisions. So Herb and Priscilla got a television, and Dad and I would bring the, I think it was, I'm sure it was just Kathy, maybe Beth, was born. But we'd go over there and to visit them and watch television.
So that would have been, she was born in 53.
Yeah, she was born in 53.
Yeah.
So,
Wow. Okay.
and it was still a while before we got television. And when we got it, it was only black and white.
Okay.
And
So
the coffee pot is going to turn off.
So, where did you go, or what did you do after you were secretary in that?
Oh, as a secretary, as I said, I had my two good friends that I had there, and they both worked in engineering as secretaries. And we used to run around together, go shopping together. We bought a Chesterfield coat, and I think it was Vicki Clary was her married name, and Ann Martin was her married name. And it was a checked coat, yellow and gray and white, I think it was.
Mm-hmm.
And Vicki couldn't get one in her size. She got it was brown instead of gray. And we wore our coats, like triplets, and crazy. And we had, at that time, we were pretty up, and Anne was the secretary to a bigwig.
Mm-hmm.
And anyway, the plant, it was Christmas, I can remember this, and they wanted a Christmas tree put up in the lobby where the receptionist was.
Mm-hmm.
And anyway, she got us, Vicki and I, and we put up this monstrous tree. We had to have maintenance guys get us a big ladder.
That was a real tree, right?
Yeah,
Wasn't it back then? Usually?
And we did it on the weekend, so we got paid for it.
Oh wow!
Oh, I tell you,
they really wanted it.
yeah. And as I said, we did crazy things together. And I was going with Dad at the time, and Ann was going with Bill, and Vicki was going with Jerry. So we three couples did stuff together.
So backing up to when did you meet Dad, or how did you meet Dad? And
well,
I know all the stories. He was the best. Okay, we were just talking about how you met Dad.
My other best friend was Darlene Hanson, and she and I went to school together at Shabance, and her father was a brother to my grandfather's nephew's wife. So we always said we were kind of related.
Right.
But Hansen and Jensen, those are Scandinavian names. Anyway, she came from a family of 10, I think it was. 9 or 10. And anyway, she this was, no, I was working at Ava Smith. Anyway, and she worked at General Mills, and we both had boyfriends from Shabance. I went with Ernie Belay, and she went with Pug Hendershot. And they joined the Navy after high school. And so she and I, by then I'd already had this car that Dad bought. And so we went to Great Lakes for their graduation. And then we went to Tennessee when they were assigned down there.
This is the boyfriends from Shabance?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, this is Ernie and Pug. Well, anyway, this went on and that, and Ernie, we were serious, and he was, he wanted to get married, but he didn't want to get married in the service. So I decided that, I didn't want to sit around and wait for him. So Dard broke up with Pug, and I broke up with Ernie. And we went to out together, to different places, bars. And we went to the Glass Rail, which was in Bradley. It's about where north of Broadway on Schuyler Avenue. It was a big dance hall, and they served food and that, and before they started their dancing and that, and a big bar. So anyway, we're in there, and her husband, Bill Beck, and Dad, Neno, and a couple other guys were there and at the bar when we came in, and anyway, they, got acquainted and everything with us and that, and then we left, and then they kept, they left too, and they kept following us in the car.
Were you going to another bar, or were you just...
we were trying to get rid of them.
Oh.
I mean, we were just out looking, not...
Yeah.
So anyway, we met them again, I guess we got rid of them, but we met them again in the Glass Rail one time. And Bill said, well, he was interested in, dating Dard and that, And anyway, he said, I'll call you sometime. So Bill called down to Shabance to Oscar Hansen's house, which was Dard's dad.
Mm-hmm.
And Bill says, I'd like to speak to your daughter. And Oscar says, which one? I've got 6. So that was, then it was a big deal that he set up a time and a date and everything. And of course, I was to come and Dad was to be there. So it was back at the Glass Rail.
Okay.
So that's where I met Dad. And they used to play baseball for some guy that ran a physical therapy place on the west side of Kankakee. And they played baseball at Shapiro.
Yeah.
And so we used to go to the baseball games on Sunday and watch them play. And then if they were out of town, we'd follow them there. So little by little, we became good friends. And she married Dad's best friend, and Dad married her best friend. So anyway, we always ran around together. Trying to think what else went on with. It was we didn't there. Wartime was different. They everything. Nothing was for sure, and those guys were young enough that they didn't enlist, but they could have been. They did have the later in life years they had draft, so it wasn't a matter of whether you wanted to enlist, you were in if they called your number, which they did when Dad and I were married in September. And in December, they sent him a notice, and he left for the service, right at the beginning of the year.
So he was drafted? He didn't
He was drafted, and that was a 2-year, I think it was 2 years that you had to serve.
Okay.
2 or 3, 2, I think.
2 things I wanted to backtrack. Did you say your dad, did he run a tavern?
Yeah. As I said, he was, he'd be gone from the farm 2 or 3 days at a time. And that was because he had met this woman and he was having an affair with her. Mm-hmm. And they went into business and ran a bar in Bradley called the Spa, which was very successful. They had a big dining room. I can't. They always had a band that played, but I can't remember that there was dancing there.
Is there a building there now where it used to be, or
there is? No, they tore it down, and it was on the north side of Broadway.
Okay.
And I can't remember what block, but it was right on the corner. And when they lost lease because they were going to tear it down and rebuild, they moved across the street. And I can't think of what the building is now over there. And still had a successful bar. Didn't have food or anything like that, just a bar. But my dad was not happy with his farming and that, and that he just was not satisfied where the farm was. Mm-hmm. In that, and times were, we were coming out of the Depression and that, so those years were hard on people, you know. But I can't.
Okay.
What
So
was?
so then you met Dad. How long you guys dated? A little while, and then got married.
Yeah. Let's see. I can't remember when I met him, but it was something funny that you know I mean, Dad and I, we went together. Dard and Bill went together. They were
the couple.
They knew that they were meant for each other, and of course Dad was reluctant in that. So, but there was one time that when we were together at his house on 6th Avenue, that we were picking pears from this stupid tree, and
I remember
so
that
the
tree.
bugs wouldn't, you know, take over the yard. And anyway, we started wrestling and on the ground. And anyway, he got on top of me and he looked at me. And when he looked at me, I could tell I had him. There was I can still see his face.
Reeled him in.
Yeah, I had him hook, line, and sinker. And we were married in 1950, and I think it was in 49. It was my birthday, and he gave me a diamond.
Oh, okay.
And then we were going to get married in December, but he decided that we should, get married in September, and we did because due to the fact that maybe they wouldn't draft him. And but they did anyway. But anyway, we got married, and of course he thought, if by the time he got home, he was sent overseas, and by the time he got home, he'd have a baby already. You miss all that, but it didn't happen. So he was, when he came home, when he got out of service, well, he had hemorrhagic fever when he was over there, and he was in the hospital, but they didn't count that as active duty. I mean, you could be later. Most of the guys died with hemorrhagic fever because they didn't know how to treat it. And
what is that? That's something to do with the rats or something?
Yeah. Later on in years, I made him go to Champaign and have a physical, and the doctor got so excited when he found out that Dad had hemorrhagic fever. He said, "My daughter is in medical school, and she's doing her thesis on hemorrhagic fever." So he interviewed Dad to find out all of it. But that by then, that was, like 2 or 3 years later, they figured out it was the mites from the rats that crawled over their, what he called fart sacks.
Oh, yeah.
And that would bite them, and that's what caused the fever.
Oh, my gosh.
So, anyway, he was very, very sick for a long time, and with that, and that was not active duty. So when he did have his time, when they released him, he still had to, I'm sure it was 2 years, maybe 3, I don't remember. He still had time that he had to fulfill that obligation. So he was sent to Camp Carson in Colorado at Colorado Springs. And he came home and he left and he took the car. He had a car and he took it back with him. And he said, well, this won't be long. He had I think it's like 60 or 90 days he had to put in yet to get released from the service. And anyway, he called about a week or so after he got out there to Colorado with the car, and he said, you'd better come and make sure that, that things, he said, I'm going to get in trouble if I,
Oh, yeah.
So anyway, he said, now you got to come right now. So I told him that I was working at A.O. Smith then yet, and I told him I was going to leave and go to Colorado, and they said, well, they'd like me to have, 2-week notice in that, and I went back and told Dad, I said, now I have to give him 2 weeks notice. No, you got to come now or don't come at all.
Oh.
Oh, okay. So anyway, I told him, I said, today is my last day, and I left,
Oh.
And I got on the train, and anyway, what was funny was the fact that when I got to Colorado Springs, why the train pulled up and saw that I had, a couple suitcases, and it weren't very light, He says, oh, let me help you. So anyway, he gets off the train with my suitcases and helping me off of the train and that, and was Dad upset? What are you doing with him? Oh. I said he was just being kind. Oh, well, no more of that, So anyway, we were in Colorado Springs, and they were not, the people of the city were not real happy, being invaded by all these soldiers and that, and they took advantage of them and everything, and it was hard to find, if you were married, hard to find an apartment that you could move into. So he found a motel, which was called, it was Kansas Motel, and the couple were from Kansas, and of course there wasn't much traffic as far as tourists, and they took these rooms that we had. A room probably about as big as this dining room, and it had a double bed, and then along one wall there was like a dresser type thing, and then a closet, and the closet had a hot plate in there, and an apartment size refrigerator under it, and shelves above the hot plate, and a bathroom, and then a closet on the back side there. So that was, and we had, I think there was only one chair. I can't even remember where that chair fit. Oh, I think it was close to the window. And it had 2 windows and a door between them. And that was it. I was there, I can't remember the month. I think 3 or 4 months we were there. And he would go to camp, and I would sit in there, and there's no television, and people were not friendly, and the only good thing was that there was a little stream behind the motel, which was kind of pleasant to hear the water, and that. And on the other side of the stream was the Garden of the Gods that all the tourists went to.
Yeah.
It's an interesting place. And, most of the rooms were, wives of soldiers and that. There was a road that went all the way around, and in the middle there was like a area that had clotheslines, so you could take your laundry to the laundromat and then come home and hang them on the clothesline. And anyway, he would leave for the camp. They had a couple guys that he met that had apartments and that, and he would ride with them or take his week and go. And then he'd come home at night, and I would have dinner ready on the hot plate. It was pretty bad. I can laugh at it now, but he always liked ham and beans, so I fixed ham and beans, and I put the ham in, and I salted the beans. The only thing was I didn't taste the ham because it was terribly salty. And we didn't have a great deal of money, it was hard times. Anyway, I thought, what on earth am I going to do? And I put the beans in the bathtub, and I ran water over those beans over and over to wash the salt off, so I wouldn't, lose the cost of the beans and that. It was crazy. But it worked out, and then I was taking his uniforms, and if you've never felt a uniform material, it's something else, I tell you. But he had me, take his uniforms to the laundromat, and then I'd come home and I'd hang them on the line, and then there would be a flash rainstorm, and the ground there was like red clay, and the rain would come in big drops, and it would hit that ground that's dry, and that raindrop would splash back up on those clothes. And I had just, after I had got them from the laundromat, I had to starch them because they had to be starched. And the only way to do that was to fix up the starch, and I put it in the bathtub and then laid the uniform out and squished them around in that. And so, you know, when you hang it on the clothesline and then they get the red dots in the thing, I had to go back out, get them, go back to the tub, bathtub, and rinse all that out, and then start all over again. And I said to him, you know, I was talking to one of the other wives, and she doesn't do laundry. He takes them to the camp, and you can get them done for, you know, small amount of money. And I said, you will be taking your laundry to the camp and having it done. Yeah, well, we got that settled, so.
They gave you a lot of free time, didn't it?
Yeah, then I had too much free time not trying to figure out what to do. Then the other thing is, I said he would come from the camp in the evening, and I would have supper ready, whatever it was, you know. And then he was gaining weight, and boy, you know, they must not be doing much, you know. Well, then I found out that he was eating supper at the camp and coming home and eating supper at home. So we got that straightened out. There was no supper for him at night.
At your house?
At my house.
You just ate your own whatever?
Yeah, I ate whatever. So anyway, we were became friends with a couple of couples, and especially the captain and his wife. They were a lot of fun, and the captain liked Dad. He about begged him to sign up again and go to Germany with him. And I was thinking, oh boy, that sounds like something good.
Yeah.
And of course, Dad kept thinking, yeah, but he can't assure me that I'm going to be going there. I may be going somewhere else. And so anyway, he kept saying no. But we were, as I said, were good friends with the captain and his wife, and his wife was pregnant, and she the captain wanted to name the baby Keith, and their last name was Pfeiffer, so his initials would have been KP, and the wife was having a fit. You know,
yeah.
Him a captain, and he's got a kid with a KP, and you know, it was just, so anyway, he changed his mind, I guess.
Oh, that's funny.
But we used to play cards with him, play euchre, and the captain was very short-tempered and that, you know, and she and I would, you know, we did, you know, really didn't care one way or the other who won, but we'd make crazy bids, and we'd beat Dad and and Captain Pfeiffer, and he gets so mad. One night he took those cards and he tried to rip them in half, and he threw them, and he said, doesn't make any GD cents. Well, you
Oh,
two
you two.
don't know nothing.
Oh.
So anyway, we had a good time with him. And she went and had the baby. And it so happened that when that happened, why the other two friends that we had, the guys and Dad had duty, and they couldn't get off when the wife was in the hospital and that. So, and the captain wanted to go see the car races, and he said, "Well, why don't you girls come and we'll go to the car races?" So I said, "Well, it's something to do, you know." And we were where we were located. It's at the foot of Pikes Peak, and these car races were up or down Pikes Peak, and the road would be closed after a certain number of, after a certain time. So you had a time period that you could take your car up and get it parked safely in some little, path that you could watch it. And then all the race cars were up on the top, and then they would time them from the top to the bottom.
Wow.
And they didn't, they weren't side by side. So anyway, we went with him that day to watch, and the only thing was it was kind of a drizzle, rainy day kind of thing, and the clouds were down. We were in a cloud and couldn't see a thing other than a cloud, and the only thing we knew was we could hear the car coming, and we'd see it swoosh past, and then we'd have to wait, and then another one. So, but it was a fun day. It was a fun day.
I figure you were going to say the windows were so steamed you couldn't see anything. Or...
Yeah, you couldn't see a thing. And but we when we were there too, the other two couples and us, and there were two other soldiers that were sergeants, and they were going to definitely go to Germany, and anyway, that we always went fishing, all of us, and trout fishing, and it was fun. We'd have catch trout, and then we'd cook them outside, there along the stream, and that. It was fun. But when these two sergeants were their last weekend of fishing, they got so drunk, and they were driving crazy around the mountains and that, and taking their expensive fishing gear and breaking the
tips of them?
The
oh, wow.
Holes and throwing the line out, and just they were they weren't going to need them anymore, and they didn't want anybody else to have them, I guess.
Right.
Yeah, I can remember that. That was, and Dad and all these other two guys there say, why didn't they give them to us?
Right.
Such a waste.
Now, when Dad was he was in Korea,
Yes.
and he was a medic. Is that
Medic.
what his title was?
Yeah, he was a medic. He and when he when he got to, I'm going back to when he went into the service and did his training at Missouri, and then went to Seattle to be sent overseas to Korea. And when they got to, they went to Japan first, and then they'd get their orders as to where they were going to be. And when he was at Japan, there was a screw up about, which ship and whatever and that. And he got into this one, unit, and that they were going to be medics, and that because the fighting was getting so bad over there, they needed them. So anyway, he had been working at I can't remember. No, he wasn't at Armours yet. But anyway, he was knowledgeable about medicine. I mean, it was just something that he, got to. So anyway, he went to school in Japan, Osaka, I think it was, and he graduated in, I don't know, some ridiculous, like I'm going to say 3 week,
crash
weeks.
course.
Yeah, it was
Everything you need to know to be a medic.
Yeah, it was everything you needed to know. About all you needed to know is where's the morphine and the syringe,
Yeah.
So anyway, he went to Korea as a medic and got into this unit. It was, no, I don't know. I can't remember how there was a certain longitude or that, they were trying to get to, so it was, to get the North Koreans back where they belonged or something. I don't know. But he got along with the captain real well, and anyway, he when they would move out in that way, the captain always had to be the last person, and that meant that Dad had to be with him in that, and I know that it was it was like the captain told him, he said, now if we get captured, I want you to make sure you give me a pill.
Oh,
so he couldn't be,
tortured or whatever.
Yeah, and because, they would torture him trying to find the information. And so he it was not supposed to be that way, but that's what Dad said that he told him to do.
Wow.
And if your officer told you to do that, you did it, And anyway, they had a lot of when they did have a rush, whatever they call it, and they had to move out quickly. Dad would. It was like a stress thing for him. and he would swell up to the point, you know, where it was just ridiculous. I've never heard of anybody do that, but anyway, he did.
His body would?
Yeah,
or
his
like
body.
His hands or
his
everything?
body would swell up. Everything. I mean,
Wow.
everything. And the captain used to say, you know, he did, GD, man, what's wrong with you?
Yeah.
And anyway, he said, I got the answer to this. So he gave him a big cup of, you know, whiskey and coffee.
Oh.
And he said, now you drink this and get settled
Relaxed. Oh, gosh.
down. So that's what, every time they had a, you know.
He got to drink.
yeah, that's what he had to drink for that.
Wow, didn't know that.
Yeah. He always talk about how he had like 2 pair of socks, and that you always had to keep one pair clean all the time so you could switch back and forth.
Right.
Because you had to keep your feet clean and dry, and that. So, and those stupid army boots, you know, they were not the greatest things.
Did he have many stories that he told you, or did he talk much about anything?
And he really didn't talk about, the only thing that he, like the fighting and all that kind of stuff, he said, you know, they'd call medic, and, you know, he'd just bring the, you know, as I said,
and
morphine and syringe and that, and ship them back to the hospital, because most of them, you know, they were
okay,
either dying or
right,
going to fight long enough to do it. And they had one time they had a aircraft that went down, and he had to go with the guys and rescue the pilot. And the pilot, you know, told him, he said, now take the radio, and he said, you keep it, don't let anybody else get it. And he did. He was anxious to, you know, get that home. I don't know if he could have, but he thought he could. But, you know, I'm sure things were really bad, but he never talked about it.
Yeah.
The only time I ever saw him excited about talking about the war was when the colonel from the golf course told his stories, and they had 2 or 3 other guys tell theirs, and
right.
Dad being one of them. But you know, there are things you try to forget because it's
right. Yeah,
so crazy. But he liked the service. He you know, I can't understand, but he was a Kankakee boy, a South Sider, you know, and sun rose and set on Kankakee.
Yeah.
And it's setting. But anyway, he's.
So then he finished up in Colorado, and you guys just came back here?
Yeah, we came back here. When he got released, I said, now I don't want to go back home the way, you know, we came. I said, we've got all kinds of time. You don't have a job. We have enough money, and let's take a different route home. Well, you never saw a car drive so fast in your life.
Yeah.
We we went south and went through Texas and then came back up through Oklahoma and wherever. But, and he went back and worked at Kraler's, which is a furniture plant, until they closed. And then he went kind of bounced around. He was at Mortels, and that was, I don't know, they did stuff with tar paper, or tar. It was a dirty job. I can't remember what all they made. And then to the paint place, and then one of our friends got a job at Armour's and told him about, applying there, and he got in there, and that's where he stayed till he retired. But 25 years there.
Okay. I think I'm going to stop for now so that I can make sure all this gets saved before I do more and can't save it, so.
Oh.
All right, sounds good.
All right.
Over and out.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
October 22nd of 2022. And this is Saturday morning.
Saturday morning.
Yeah.
And I got up at 6 and I'm ready for a nap.
Oh, well, sorry.
Anyway, I didn't tell you when we were married and that kind of thing, which is kind of important. And, it was December 16th, 1949 that I got engaged. And then we were married in 1950, September 30th. And we were at the rehearsal, which was on a Thursday night because somebody had Sunday or Friday night already booked at the church. And at the rehearsal, we got a call from my aunt that my grandfather, my mother's father, passed away. So it was like, okay, now what do we do? Do we go ahead with it, or should we wait, or, and finally my dad said, well, everything is, all set up, so you might as well go ahead and do it, and the funeral service wouldn't be until Monday then. So it was, it was a happy time, but yet it was a sad time for our side of the family.
Where did you get the church you got married at and
reception? At that time, it was called the First Methodist Church, which is now Asbury, and it's on, I don't know, Merchant and Harrison. I think that's the thing.
In Kankakee here,
in
basically.
Kankakee. Yeah. And we had, I wanted my two best friends to be in the wedding, and they were both Catholic, and they had to check with their preachers, priests, if it was okay. And the one, Vicky Lesowich, her priest said, fine, you just don't, he should not sign anything. That would be a sin, I guess, I don't know. But Anne Whalen, she was from St. Pat's, and they said, oh no, you can't take part in any kind of thing like that. So I had to kind of search. I didn't search hard, but I had to get another girl, and I felt bad about it because, she wasn't the first person I chose.
Right, yeah.
But anyway, that happened to be, her married name was Stelk. Isn't that awful? I can't think of her first name now. But anyway, those are little things that happen, in your preparations for big things like the wedding. Anyway, we had our reception at the Casey Hall, and then we went to the homestead and had a supper after the reception.
Afterwards? After the reception you ate?
Yeah, the reception was like earlier in the afternoon, and then later, like at 5 or 6, we went and had supper. And then we went, our first night of marriage and that, we went back to Irwin, and our furniture and apartment was above the tavern there in Irwin. So Dad and I, stayed there that night, and in the morning, I could hear something, and it was up above the tavern, and I could hear someone on the steps coming up the steps, and when we got up, I said, look and see what's, somebody came up, Well, it was one of our neighbors in the country, and she brought 4 eggs for us for breakfast and some bread and that. So we fixed our breakfast and then got ready and went to Piper City, and we were there for a couple days and for the funeral and that. And then we started on our honeymoon, which was not planned at all. We just got in the car and drove. And we drove to Milwaukee and stayed overnight there. Then we drove to Keokuk, Iowa, and we stayed there, and that was a fiasco. The place was busy and, filled up, and we got a room on this floor that turned out to be all men, and you had a community bathroom.
Oh.
So I had to. I went once, and a man came in, and he didn't see me, and I didn't see him, but I could,
right.
make the noise was a man, and after that I had made Dad come and go with me to the bathroom. We left there, and then we went to St. Louis. And after that, we drove to Champaign, and I had friends there that from the country when we lived in Hoag. They were good friends of my parents, and I always liked them, and I said, well, let's just stop and see them, say hello. Well, they insisted that we stay overnight. That was like on a Friday, I think, and stay overnight. And he worked at the university, so he could get tickets to the football game, which was the next day. So we went to the football game and then came home to 1217 South 6th Avenue, where we lived with his mother for until 1955.
So like 5 years?
Yeah, like 5 years. And I kept telling Dad, well, by then we had Kathy and Beth, and Jamie was just born. And I kept saying, you know, the house is too small, you know.
Yeah, I didn't realize
Yeah.
you had all three or
yeah,
two of them even.
Yeah. So anyway, we got the house and built. And when one thing that I remember, when we built the house, they dig out for the basement and the floor and everything. Well, when Dad gave the directions or blueprints to the guy, he didn't make it big enough, and for the brick on each side, you know. So it was, and they were coming like, you know, the next day or so to, you know, start the foundation and brick blocks. And I had to come over pregnant in the last
Oh yeah, he was born in August. So
the very last month of my pregnancy, and I shaved down the wall on the you know, ground, and he was down in the hole, and you know, throwing it out as I. It was a fiasco.
Oh, all the memories, huh?
Yeah, all the things that go wrong. But anyway, we got the house built, and we came over here. It was Casey. He must be thinking of me.
Jamie?
Jamie was born on August 30th, and I think we moved in October 3rd. And it was kind of, you know, it was exciting to come in that, but getting back to his mother, when we lived there, she, you know, she had lived alone for so long with Dad in that, and it was like she resented the fact that, you know, I was
taking him away,
taking her baby boy away, you know, and that. But and she was always good to me and everything. But you know, you could still feel that kind of thing.
Her name was Hannah.
Hannah LeVeque was her maiden name.
What nationality? And
she was German, and she had a sister in Chicago, and we saw her 2 or 3 times, but I don't know, you know, back in that time, you know, when they're coming out of the depression and then going into a war and everything is just, you know, you were never really close to your family, and she never talked about, you know, anyone else in that, so I didn't know.
And then what about Grandpa George?
And Grandpa George was
his middle name Peter?
George Peter LeVeque. And he was one of, I think it was 14 or 16 kids. His family were from Saint Anne, and the father had walked from Quebec to Saint Anne, which was kind of typical of that era. You know, the English were coming into Canada and, you know, taking over, and so the French, you know, started moving south in that, and would work a while and then go on walking and work again, to get money to keep going. And he married, I can't remember what his first name was. He married a Saint Peter, anyway, it was a Saint something. And they had, I want to say, 8 or 9 kids, and then there was this terrible flu, or I don't know what they called it, but 6 of their children died, and it was a custom in some families that they would have that many more children again, and they would name them the same thing. And so I never knew quite what it was.
Oh, okay.
But Grandpa had a lot of sisters, and he had a brother, but I never knew anything about him.
So we still see that LeVeque name sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
Sometimes with the S added
Yeah,
on it.
yeah. It's still, it was one of the early settlers, and the sisters were married to what they call the shoes, and
Dutch.
yeah, Dutch people, and we visited a couple of the sisters when we were first married. Took Grandma out there, but Grandpa was always in. He was sick for a long time. He was in the war. He got out of the war, and then he worked in ammunition plant like my mother did, and he had gotten I think it was called bromide poisoning, which affected his mind, and it was just, he was in Danville in the Veterans Hospital there, and of course they did all these god-awful things about putting electrodes on you and shocking you, trying to get you back to normal back in that day.
Yeah.
And
so he was in there quite a few years. I
oh
remember
yeah,
going
he
there
was.
and visiting.
I can't. Hannah raised Uncle Alan and Dad by herself. I mean, he was gone.
So Dad only had the one brother.
One brother, Alan.
And he married
Doris Jensen.
Oh yeah.
And she was no relation to me.
Okay.
And when he married her, they both had been married before. He had no children, but she had 2, a boy and a girl. So anyway, Hannah was kind of sad that we were leaving, but again, not very happy that I had taken her son away. But anyway, that was we were married, and I was 20 and he was 21. And when we were married in September, and he left for the service in December. We went down to the railroad depot in Kankakee, and I waved goodbye, and he was off to Chicago, to Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri, and he was there for quite some time, training. And once in a while, there'd be somebody that was going down there, and they always knew who was down there, I rode a couple times with some of the wives of other soldiers. And
Well, when you guys got married, then where were you living? Were you
when we got married, I was living. I was living with my grandmother. My mother and I lived with my father's mother.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, and that was on 855 East Station Street.
Okay,
so,
okay.
Then when he left Fort Leonard Wood, well, he had a leave, you know, because then he was going overseas, and he went to Seattle and then on a ship to Japan. And when he was there was a kind of a mix-up on who was going where, you know, and that. And he got into being a
his job there.
His job and sort
A
of
medic.
Medic.
Yeah.
Medic.
Yeah.
He became a medic.
Right.
And he learned how to do that, and I think in 3 or 4 weeks, which was giving mostly a morphine shot.
Yeah, you had said that. So, so how long was he in the service?
Well, let's see, he went in 1950 and he got out in
1952.
52, yeah, at the end of 1952. Yeah, 50, 51, 52. And when he came back from, well, while he was over there, he was in several battles and that, he came down with hemorrhagic fever, and at that time most of the soldiers that got it died, but he was sent back to the hospital from the battlefield, and he finally came out of it and that. But then he still had time, you know, he went into the service and you had to serve X number of months.
Oh, yeah.
And he still had time, so he was assigned to Camp Carson in Colorado. And before...
Oh, that's when you...
That's when...
He wanted you to come out there, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, well, yeah, we talked about that. We talked about the place that it looked like.
Yeah.
And about how he was eating meals before he came home to eat meals.
Yeah, yeah.
And, yeah, that's what it was. And then you were on your way back.
Yeah, we came back and he got his job at Kraler's again, but Kraler's was a furniture factory and they were closing and moving to the East Coast. So he was without a job for a while, and he had to find one, and he worked at motels, which they did stuff with tar, and it was a dirty place, you know. I mean, they had good money for what they did, but it was just dirty to work. And then he got into Armours.
When would that have been? When was he at Armours?
Boy, I don't remember.
Were we all born?
Yeah, I'd already had, yeah, you guys were all born. You were little babies.
Oh, still? Okay.
Yeah, so, and he worked there 25, 30 years, somewhere in there. And we had friends, you know, that he worked with at Kraler's, and one couple they divorced, and the guy married another girl from Armours. His name was Moody.
Oh, yeah.
Harold Moody, and it was we were close with him and his first wife, not so much the second one. But anyway, he was killed in an accident there at Armours, and it was kind of a sad place time.
Yeah, I remember the name, and I remember that happening.
Yeah. I don't know, during that time, we, had the house here, and we built the garage, and then I said, we've got 5 kids, and it was important that they go on and get some kind of schooling. And he couldn't, at that time, Armours always, they were a union, and they were always fussing, so they were having a strike, and he'd be off work for I don't know how long. And it got really, scary and what was going on. And I said, I don't know how we're, going to keep up. And I said, well, why don't I go back to school and get my degree? And the principal and the personnel director of the Kankakee School District had always, said, why don't you go back to school? Why don't you go to school and get your degree? And, that just kind of added to the idea that I do that. So I did. It was rough. It was, I'm not complaining about it. But
so was Grandma Minnie living with us then?
Yeah, Grandma had, because I was in school at Olivet, and it was my last year, and I was doing, taking finals, and my grandmother that mother lived with went to the hospital, and was having a bad time, and she wouldn't cooperate with the nurses and that, and they said, well, she keeps calling for Joanne, and who is Joanne, So anyway, it ended up that I had to take off between tests to go, settle her down and that, so. And she died, during that time, and Mother had nowhere to go,
Right.
And it would have been more difficult to get an apartment and, work.
Well, even you 3 keeping up the house over there in Station, that had to be something else.
Yeah, that was, I think that's where I got my back problems. I always think of she lived on a half a lot, and the back of the house there was about 5 feet, from her house to the ownership line. But at that ownership line, the house facing the other direction, the backyard went down.
Okay, yeah.
And there was like a wall built up, so and no fence to, protect you from falling over there. But I had to put up the storm windows in the winter.
Jeez.
and they were made of hardwood. Heavy, oh my Lord, they were heavy. And there was a little hook two hooks at the top of the window, and you had to get them the window up enough to get it down, so you couldn't stand, here, and there wasn't enough room to, back that way, so you had to stand sideways, hold the stupid window.
Man.
It was awful. I was always thankful when I got to the last window.
Yeah. But before Grandma came then and you were going to school, then all of us kids went to, how many of us went to, was it Marie?
Marie.
Did Kathy go to Marie, or was she always in school?
Yeah, not always. It was you and I got my classes so that I would only go when somebody was here to take care of you, or you were in school. Well, you and Sue were not old enough to be in school yet, so you were there at Marie's house, and then she was, they didn't have a lot. They had money, but it was, her husband was different. But anyway, she always had to take her laundry to a laundromat. Really? And I said, well, why don't you bring your laundry here, and you and Sue would be here. So that's what she did on the days that I went to school. And
so did the other three go to Marie, or were they already in school?
Well, they did on an occasion or two.
Okay,
Beth always complains about it, but she was never there that much. But it was good that you saw how some other people lived, and different, because they were. I mean, she was just as good as could be, but he
was a jerk.
Yeah, it was different.
And what with Sue's disability? How describe all of that scenario?
Yeah, when she was about 2, and Dad, I took her to the doctor, for shots or whatever, and I said, she doesn't talk, and I knew, you guys, went through a time you didn't talk. You pointed or screamed or did something to get your way. And the doctor says, what, she doesn't say anything? And I said, well, she says Mama and Dad and Cindy, and we had a dog, and it was she was Penny, and she would, had a word for all those.
Just the 4 important people in her life.
Yeah. And other than that, there was, nothing that she did talking. And then she went to kindergarten, and as I said before, the principal at the school, he was one of the ones that, kept saying that I should be a teacher. But anyway, when she was in kindergarten, he called me and he says, I want you to come and talk to me about Sue. And I said, okay. And he said, there is a problem. And I said, well, I know that, but I just didn't know quite how to handle it. So anyway, he made arrangements that I took her to Chicago to, I don't know, one of the universities there, probably Chicago. I don't remember those things. I tried, to forget all of them. But anyway, there were all kinds of doctors and, other people, other people there that I found out were representing companies that had something to do with children. And they said, well, now we're going to take her and talk to her. Well, I mean, she did not, you know, if she didn't know you, she wouldn't say boo. She wouldn't say boo. And finally, after about 20 minutes, they came out and said, could you come in? And then they would ask questions. She'd look at me and I'd say, and she'd answer, and that kind of thing. And what they were looking for was, you know, what caused her to have this problem, and all the things that, you know, that they had gathered and that. And her birth was normal, so, you know, everything about that. And there was something, you know, from the birth to, you know, when this happened, and when it happened, they weren't really sure then. They said they thought she had,
is it meningitis or encephalitis?
Encephalitis.
Yeah, encephalitis.
When you guys had measles, that she, you know, was too young to get measles, but she had the fever and that, and they thought the fever was too high for her, and that's what caused that to affect her brain. But the other thing was that with these companies, they were also trying to find out if the I can't remember the
immunization, whatever.
Yeah, the shots that you know, infants get, and that if there was a you know, if they weren't you know,
like a defective batch, or
something that just wasn't right with them. And at that time there was children that had, you know, problems caused by that, and they, like they said, the only thing, you know, it pointed more to the fact that, you know, you guys had measles than it, you know, because everything else was, you know, supposedly normal with her, you know, with the birth and that kind of thing.
I don't know how they could try to decide if it was the immunization. I don't know how you would even decide that.
Well, I'm sure they probably, you know, I had to give the name of our doctor, Dr. Farlander. And
do the background of how many kids her age might have been affected, or if they were.
And he probably had to, you know, tell where he bought, you know, got the medicine, you know, and that kind of thing. But
so who all had measles here? The three of us?
All of you.
And then Sue had a high fever, but not necessarily.
Yeah, she was an infant, you know. And infants aren't supposed to get, you know, they're supposed to be immune to, you know, a lot of stuff until they're older.
Okay.
So anyway, she got out of kindergarten, and I took her to a nursery school and that, and I told them the situation, and they said, well, that's all right. They would, you know, work with her, and you know, just so they knew. And she was happy there. She, you know, did things that, you know, she can do things, you know.
Oh, yeah.
To this day, she probably knows more about what's going on in the world than you.
Yeah, she definitely does,
Yeah, so her speech is a problem for her, but if she doesn't get excited and speaks slow and softly. I listen to her, when she's on the phone with her friends,
Yeah.
and she will be quiet and talk, and she does much better than when she's upset with something that I told her she can't do.
Yeah, I've listened to those rants. She talks a mile a minute.
Yeah, that's what Kathy always called her, chatty.
Right.
Chatter. And she called herself Duty.
Was that because, I thought that was because I couldn't say Susie, and I called her Duty. No?
Well, it probably was. You probably.
Could have been. Yeah, because I always call her Duty.
Yeah, and she probably picked it up afterwards.
Or maybe that's how she said her name.
I can remember. I can remember one time. Somebody asked her what her name was, and she, as I said, she didn't talk to you unless it was it was okay with me. And he said, "Now come on, tell me your name." Well, what does your mother call you? She calls me for supper.
There you go, Sue.
So I put her out in the morning and
yeah, right.
call her in at night. Yeah, funny.
So what were your, like, when you were growing up, I think I asked you this earlier, like some of the luxuries of TV, you didn't have that till late.
The first TV we had was black and white.
And when did that happen? While you were still...
Well, we were probably in the 50s.
So right when you met Dad? Or married him? You said you got married in 50.
I'm trying to think. I think it was probably after he got out of service.
Oh, well, okay.
I mean, people had them, but it was like a real luxury. And
when and cars. You said Grandma had one that your dad had given her.
Yeah,
and
he didn't give it in a nice way.
Oh.
He was forced to.
Did they ever divorce?
No, they never divorced.
He just passed away.
Yeah, it was just like in November. It was my grandfather, his father, he died at Christmas, and
right.
My dad died in
September? Or no?
Thanksgiving.
Oh, okay.
Because we were here. I had fixed dinner and everything, and we were just finishing, and got a phone call, said that he was in the hospital and was going to pass away. So. Was
I born, or do you know?
Yeah.
Okay, because I only see, the picture of him with Kathy, Beth, and Jamie.
Yeah. But
I was probably born, but just not in those photos.
Yeah.
Because I think Jamie looked like he
lived, past that time. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he had cirrhosis of the liver, too much drinking and that kind of thing.
Now, I don't want to sidetrack you, but I was thinking back here at the house, and that the whole basement was wide open.
Yeah.
The laundry was already down. I mean, you did laundry down there.
But it was where the kitchen is now.
Oh, that's where it was.
And and we had the whole basement open, and.
Oh, is that so? Then was that when Grandma came that Dad had the rooms built?
Yeah.
I know we always called that one room Grandma's room.
It started before that.
Okay.
I had.
Well, yeah, we were kind of piled up in the bedrooms, weren't we?
Yeah, and that too, and we only had one bathroom.
Yeah.
That was a problem, and I wanted him to put a bath in there. Well, he procrastinated and that, and I happened to be in Piper City visiting my grandmother and aunt and uncle down there, and they had remodeled and had this toilet. And
Well, that's a start. I got
sounds
a
good to
toilet.
me. So we loaded it in the trunk and it came home with this toilet. And I said, now I want you to take that downstairs and we'll decide where we're going to put it. I'm not doing that. I don't know how to do that. I said, well, we'll figure it out somehow. But anyway, we ended up, and that's what started the changing of where the laundry room was. And we had a big shower, and that worked out great because I'd get in the shower and he'd
One at a time,
one at a time, went in and out and that kind of thing. And then we moved the washer and dryer and.
Well, did he do that work, or he had help? Somebody.
Well, he,
come in and help?
Dad was the kind, he'd talk to guys until
Get the info.
until he really had it in his head how he's
Right. And he Googled it with his friends.
Yeah, Googled it. That's his way. Well, I mean, he was on a first name basis with a mechanic he was fixing the refrigerator.
Oh, yeah.
And he said,
Lord.
now if I call, I'm going to ask for you. Okay, that's fine.
Oh, wow.
Anyway.
Well, did he actually build the house then, or what?
The house was built by
A general
there was a
contractor?
man I don't remember his name. He lived in near the Bradley Bourbonnais High School, and he was a builder.
Mm-hmm.
And a real nice man. He had a lot of houses and that we went to, look at and see what they went. And Dad only wanted him to do the framing of it and that. So he did, and then we had another friend that lived down on 3rd Avenue that was a bricklayer,
Okay.
and we got him to do the brick.
Did Dad do it along with him, or just the guy?
Yeah, he helped. No,
Okay.
He really, the guy, I can't remember if he worked by himself. I think he did. So I'm sure Dad did some things
Yeah. Okay.
in that.
And the garage came years after that, because I
Years
think I
after
remember
that,
the driveway being poured.
and I'm still upset he wouldn't put in a drain.
Oh yeah.
And then when he got sick, why he would drive, to McDonald's to meet the cronies there for coffee, and come home and snow piled on the car, and it would, he wouldn't clean.
Yeah.
He couldn't clean it off. I couldn't say he wouldn't. He couldn't clean it off, and he just park it in the garage, and
Everything was wet.
and the salts just eats
Yeah.
cement there anyway. But it's all right. It's served its purpose
Yeah.
for years.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Can't think of any other. And of course, that September 30th was our anniversary, and
Mm-hmm.
when we were married 30 years, I decided everybody should go out and celebrate,
yeah.
And we went to the Elks for after church to the buffet they had there.
Champagne brunch.
Yeah, champagne brunch. And that Bill and Kathy were married, and John was about
6 months, wasn't he?
yeah, about 6 months old. And I can remember I was sitting beside him, you know, and he had his tray, and it was, you know, he was, you know, with his hands, he wanted something. So I was cracking up crackers and giving it to him. Oh, don't give him crackers. He's never had crackers. I said, well, he has now.
Yeah.
And then we put their car wasn't working right, so we were following them home to Dad could take a look with Bill at the car and see what was wrong, and it was not a good day.
Nope, I remember that day.
Yeah. So it was. Bill was at St. Mary's, and Kathy was at Riverside.
You bring John up to Chicago right away?
And John was at St. Mary's for a while, and then they you know, Bill got out right away, and they said he's got to go to Chicago. So it was.
Was that Children's Memorial? Wasn't that the name of it?
Yeah, Children's Memorial, and
yeah, I remember him being there.
And then later on, and can't remember. He was still a baby. He had hematoma on the brain, and they had to remove it or do something.
And they put a shunt in, right? Didn't they put a shunt in his? Or
I don't know. I don't think so.
I thought they had to drain it that way.
I don't know. They removed it is what they did when they got in there. But they cut like an S on his skull and drilled out 2 quarter-size holes so they could get in there and put him all back together. And he's still working. But that was quite a time. By that time, Dad was in Florida. He was a union man, and there was some union meeting that they went to. A couple other guys from Armors. And Bill called and said that they were going to do the surgery, and he wanted to know if I could come up, you know, and Dad, and I said, well, let me call, you know. So I called Dad, and of course he couldn't, it rattled him right away, and the guys with him said, we'll get you to the airport, you get on the plane and leave, you know. And we picked him up, it was early in the morning, and we picked him up at night, and we went to Ronald McDonald House to stay overnight for the surgery the next morning. And he and I were in a single bed. It was the most miserable night for both of us.
Yeah.
The worry was bad. But
the worry's bad, but then trying to find room.
Yeah. If I turned over, he had to turn over.
Crazy.
It was funny. Some crazy times.
I can't think of anything else right now. Can you? If we do, we'll meet again, Ma. That'd be great. I know we're going to be getting ready in December for 93rd birthday.
Yes. Did you realize that Drew's birthday is be 39?
Yeah.
And I said to him, Drew, do you see that? And I said, that's a strange thing. And he texted back and he said, oh, we'll only have to buy 2 balloons.
Yeah.
Oh, Lordy, I thought that was so...
That is weird. That's kind of fun, though.
Yeah, Yeah, so.
Okay.
Anyway, yeah, we'll have to get all. Bill's gonna bring music, so we got that taken care of.
All right.
He's got a tape machine or something.
So Jamie will be home, and we'll
Yeah.
all be celebrating that.
Yep.
Okay. All right.
Okay. Next time.
Close this up here.
All right.
Over and out.